welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's tutorial, we're creating a flat fall bouquet entirely in Procreate. So what you see on screen is exactly what we're going to be creating together. We're actually only using one brush for this entire bouquet, and it's my free monoweight brush. I'll leave a link in the video description to that. And the color palette is free as always. I've also popped a link right in the video description to that as well. This week's tutorial is brought to you by Envato Elements, the Netflix of graphic design. Envato Elements is packed with thousands of creative resources, making any project quicker and more professional. My favorite is their Procreate brush section, where you can download and install beautiful brushes and design elements in a snap. They've even generously provided Every Tuesday viewers with a, ready for this, 70% off coupon, so you can try it out for less than $10 a month. It's limited time though, so be sure to hit the link in the video description and grab that insanely valuable coupon and go on your own downloading spree. So I'm going to create a brand new document that's 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels at 300 dpi, and then we can get started. Okay, I've got my canvas all ready to go, and the first thing we're going to do is drop in our background color. So just tap on your layers, tap on background color, and then choose this very bottom one all the way at the very end. We're going to start with our largest elements first, which are our roses. Then we'll move on to some of our smaller supporting elements and foliage and finish everything off. So we'll start with our rose. The first rose is a pink rose. So make sure you're on your first layer. I'm going to grab my pink color, which is the third one on the second row. And I've got my monoweight brush selected. It's my free brush. It's right in the video description. And we're just going to draw kind of a wobbly circle. So it's not a perfect circle. And then drop color into it. You want to make sure that you have an entirely closed path. Otherwise the color will bleed out and onto your canvas. So now that I've got my wobbly circle, now I can start drawing some details in the middle. And I usually start off by drawing my dots, my center dots, to give myself a focal point for all the petals that I draw in around it. So for the center of my rose, I'm going to grab my darkest red color, which is the first one up at the top. And the size of my brush is 5%. And I'm just going to put in some dots here randomly. Some of them can be more ovals than dots. And now I can start drawing in my petals. So my petals are generally a lighter color than the background of my rose. So I'm going to grab this very first light pink color right there. And what you're going to do is just draw a bunch of half moons that come around. And then they're slowly going to get wider and bigger. And sometimes I like the sketchy look, so I won't even fill them all the way in, and I'll just kind of sketch fill them in. And that can give you a little bit of texture if you're looking for that. Okay, and one thing I always make sure I do is I don't create an extra gap where there's already a gap. So since there's a gap here, I made sure that my next element covered this area. That way your eye doesn't go directly to these gaps. All right, so now we'll move on to some of our other roses. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. The next rose is going to be this red color, so I'm going to tap on that. And once again, create a wobbly circle, drop in color. I'm going to grab my same dark red color for the center, give myself some dots. And then I'm going to grab this color, it's the second one on the second row, and do the exact same thing. If you're on the latest iOS 14, and you're using Procreate 5X, you can now rename your layer by writing it out. So if I tap on the layer thumbnail and choose rename, I can scribble this and then write pink rose here, and it will automatically recognize it. So that could be a little faster if you're renaming your layer. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. This one's going to be called red rose. I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to label this one mustard rose, and I'm going to grab this color. It's the second to the last on the top row. Once again, draw my wobbly circle. And my petals for this one are going to be this last color at the very end. And then the last color, rose, let me create a brand new layer, rename this one yellow rose, and we're going to grab this yellow color. It's the third one up at the top. And the petals for this one are going to be this fourth yellow on the top. So now I've got my 4 different colored roses. So now I can start arranging them and duplicating them to place them in other areas. So for my pink one, let's come back to this one. I'm going to set this one kind of down in the lower corner, and then my red one's going to be on top of it, kind of like right here. I'm going to duplicate my yellow rose because I want one of these yellow roses to be pretty large like this one, but I want another one to be small. And you can always scale down, but you never want to scale anything up because that's when you start getting those really pixelated, blurry edges. So because I know I need one smaller and one larger, I'm going to duplicate my larger one and then reduce the other one that's going to be smaller. So now I can move this over here, reduce the size of it. And I want this one to be kind of tucked in here. Looks pretty good. And this one's going to be sent beneath my other ones because I want it to appear behind them. So wherever it is in your layers, whatever's on top of it will appear on top of it over here. So it's pretty easy to remember. Let me rotate this a little bit too by grabbing the green node. And then my mustard one, once again, I'm going to have a second mustard one that's going to be a little larger. So I'm going to duplicate this one. This one's going to be my smaller mustard one. And I'm going to drag this one all the way down as well. Move this one over here and reduce the size of it a bit. I'm actually going to create another mustard one and move that one right up here and keep it the size that it's already at. So all these ones are in the bottom area of my layout. And now I can move this other mustard one up here, further towards the top. I'm going to reduce the size just a bit on this one. I'm going to grab the yellow rose that I had and move this over here, reduce the size just a little bit. And I'm going to move this one underneath that mustard one because I want this mustard to be on top of it. And you can play around with whatever order you like of things. This is just kind of how I had it planned out. And then I'm going to grab my red rose, duplicate this one, and move this one over here. Rotate that a little bit so it looks a little different. And I'm also going to move this one on top of everything else. So I'm realizing that my layout's kind of ending up towards the right. So I'm just going to select everything and move it further over here, just so everything's a little more balanced. Now that I have all of these together, I can group them and just label this one roses. And now we can start adding different elements on top of them and behind them. So my next major element are my daisies. So for my daisies, I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to add some on top of my roses to the center. That way I have a focal point. And then I'm going to start adding some around the border of my bouquet. So my daisies are going to be very light colored. So I'm going to grab my white right here. And these ones, you just draw them out however you would like. And then fill it with color. Make sure your path is closed so your color doesn't bleed out. I'm going to reduce the size of this one because it's a little big. I generally draw things a little bit larger than I need them because I can always scale down, but you can't scale up. You have to redraw if you need to scale up. Okay, so I'm just going to come around this and draw them everywhere that I want them and leave the centers out. It's just easier for me to just draw all the petals at once, get that organized, and then draw in the centers afterwards. And I want to also mention, if you draw something, since I'm putting all these petals on the same layer, let me label this daisies. Since I have these all on the same layer, if I don't like the placement or the size of this one, you want to select it. So just hit the little selection up here. You want to make sure freehand is selected down here with add, and then you can draw around it and then hit your cursor, and now you can resize it, rotate it, whatever you need. So that's how you select different elements on the same layer. Okay, now that I have my daisies, I'm going to create a brand new layer, create the centers of them. Now I'm going to group these two together. Let me label this one daisy centers. I can group these two together just by sliding this one over, group. These ones are going to be flat daisies. Okay, we're going to continue filling in our bouquet and then we'll return to daisies later because we want to put some around the outside and then we're going to add some smaller different colored daisies at the very end. So the next element we're going to add in is a branch of different flower buds. I'm going to grab this light pink color right here. It's the first one on the second row. I'm going to increase my brush size up to 15% and I'm just going to freehand some flower buds right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'll label this one flower buds. I'm going to create a brand new layer, drag it underneath my flower buds layer because this is going to be the stem of these flower buds. And the color of this one is going to be this very first green over here. I'm going to reduce my brush size down to about 4% and draw in a stem and kind of connect all these flower buds to it. Okay, I'm going to group these two together, label this one flower buds, and I'm going to grab this group and drag it underneath my flat daisies group. That way the stems of these won't overlap my daisies anymore. So just tap and then drag. And now you can see they're behind my daisies, but on top of my roses. So that's exactly what I want. Now we're going to add in some supporting leaves to the background to start filling everything out. And then we can see where we have gaps where we can start placing other daisies and other elements. So for these general leaf shapes, they're going to be at the very bottom. So I'm going to create a brand new layer and then drag it underneath my roses layer. And this one's just going to be called leaves. And these ones are going to be all different colors of leaves. So I can start with my dark green color right here. And all I'm going to do is draw in some leaves like this. And if it's hard seeing where your end is to make sure that you have a closed path, just turn off, just uncheck the visibility of the layer that you're having a hard time seeing around. So since that's unchecked, I can see that I've got a closed path. And now when I turn it back on, everything looks good. So if at any point in time you're not sure if your path is all the way closed, that's how you can tell. So I'm just going to drop in a few leaves that are different colors here. And since this leaf color is the same as my stem, I want to make sure I don't overlap them because I want contrast between them. Okay, now I can move to my next color. My next color is going to be this color right here. And I'm just going to keep doing this until it's all nice and full here. All right, on to the next color, which is the third one at the bottom. I also want to mention that with the latest Procreate version, you used to be able to just drop color on the same layer to fill in elements. Like right here, I used to be able to just drop in color and it would fill in this entire leaf, even if it was on the same layer. But now with the new Procreate, if I drop in color, it excludes this part that overlaps the other color. So you'll have to color that in manually. So just a heads up about that. Okay, you can see it's starting to get nice and full. We've got one more color right here to add in, and then we'll be all set with these leaves. Okay, I've got my leaves in here, and now I'm going to add in some really dramatic colored leaves that are more reddish. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, drag it underneath my leaves layer because these ones are going to be the furthest back element. I'm going to label this one red leaves. And then I'm going to come over here and grab my darkest red color, and I'm going to draw up some leaves to give this some extra character. So these ones are going to be symmetrical on both sides. And I'm going to add these all the way around the bouquet. Now we're going to add in some berries. So our berries need to be behind our roses, but on top of our foliage. If I tap on my leaf layer and create a brand new layer right here, that's exactly where I want them to go. So now I'm going to create the berries, which are going to be this bright yellow color. It's the third one up at the top. And I'm going to increase my brush size once again up to about 14%. And these berries are going to be definitely more circular in shape, unlike our flower buds. So I'm just sporadically drawing some berries in. They're different sizes. So I'm putting little clusters here and there. Okay, now we're going to draw their stems in. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, drag it underneath my berries. And for this one, we're going to color this mustard brown color. So I'm going to reduce my brush size down to about 3% and just connect them all. Okay, you can see everything's really starting to fill out now. And now is a great time to add in the rest of our daisies that kind of surround everything and put the focus back towards the center. So we're going to create a brand new layer up at the very top because we want these to be noticed and not covered up by anything. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to return to my white. And for these ones, since they are on the side, they're going to be shaped like this. So they're more like a half daisy. Okay, we're going to put the centers on these, so create a brand new layer, grab your mustard color again, and these ones are going to be half circles. And since these ones are extending beyond the bouquet, we need to add some stems to them. So I'm going to create a brand new layer right above my flat daisies layer. So tap on flat daisies, create a brand new layer, and these stems are going to be lighter in color. So I'm going to grab this one, this fourth one at the bottom, and the size is, let's go up to 4% for this. And these ones, these stems, I don't want to overlap any of this, so I'm actually going to drop these all the way behind everything. So let's drag this all the way to the bottom. Just realized I was going to overlap things and we don't want that to happen. So this layer is all the way at the very bottom, and now we can add in some leaves right onto these. So as I went around, I noticed it's really hard to see some of these, especially this one. So I'm curious if I drag this up, how that looks. So now at least you can see a little bit more. Let's see how it looks if I drag it above my leaf layer. I think I like that the best. It's okay to reorder things, and that's why we put things on separate layers. I could have actually put all of these leafy background elements on separate layers as well, but for the sake of time, I kind of condensed things. But if you want to move and manipulate and alter things later, the more layers you have, the easier it is to test different things out. So that's looking really full now, and I like how that looks. So the last little detail that we need to add in is just some additional daisies to finish filling it all out, and then this will be done. So I have a lot of areas that are just blocks of green where these leaves are filling things out, and I just want to add a little bit of an extra pop of color in those areas. So that's where my little daisies are going to come in. So I'm going to come up to the very top, create a brand new layer. My little daisies are going to be this color right here, and just draw little daisies to fill it out. So now I just have to add in the centers, so create a brand new layer. And for the centers of these, we're going to grab this lighter mustard color at the very end up at the top. So now that I have my bouquet all done, I just want to center it on my canvas because it's feeling just a little too high and towards the left to me. So I can select all of my layers and then just move them. You can see if you have the snapping turned on to snapping right here, when you move it around, you can see those crosshairs, the brown crosshairs, and that shows you where the exact center is. So now I know my layout is perfectly centered. So that's how to create a flat fall floral bouquet entirely in Procreate. Once again, links to the free mono weight brush as well as the free color palette are right in the video description. So just tap in there and you can have access to both of those. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of new tutorials just like this one in the future. For more Procreate tutorials and freebies, head on over to my site, every-tuesday.com. You can also find me over on Instagram. My handle is everytuesday. If you try this out and post it there, I would love it if you tag me. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.